Welcome to API Autoflow Getting Started. In this lesson, we'll go through how to download API Autoflow from the website, how to install and run the software, how to apply a license for commercial use. We'll go through each section of API Autoflow user interface, and we'll wrap up by creating a simple solution together. Okay, let's get started. First, we need to go to the website www.interactor.com. Now, most of you will be on the website already, but here's the website address for those who are coming from other sites like YouTube. Now, to download the software, you need to register on the site. Now, this is to verify your email address since the license will be tied to your ID. So it is important to safekeep the ID and password. Once you are on the website, go to the download page. Here you'll see many OS versions. Currently, API Autoflow supports Mac, Windows, and many types of Linux. You can also pull from the Docker, and it also supports Kubernetes. Select the version that matches your operating system and press the download button. The downloading should be pretty quick since the software is only about 70 megabytes. After the download is complete, follow the instructions below to untar and run the software. Go to localhost 4000. Note that the default port for API Autoflow UI is port 4000, but you can change it later on. Next, if you are using Autoflow for commercial use, you'll need to purchase the license from the website or contact sales@interactor.com to have the license emailed to you. You don't need a license when you're developing the solution, but if you are deploying in a real network, I advise you get one. That's because developer license is limited in the number of calls that it can receive, and it's supported by community at a best effort. When you're deploying in your company, it is crucial that you have a support that you need for your solution and product. Once you get the license, you can apply it by going to the Administrator tab of the Autoflow. Now, when you open API Autoflow for the first time, you'll see a user interface something like this. Now, it could differ a little between the versions, but overall, you'll be able to find things without any problem after going through this training. Now, first, on the left, you have the left panel navigation. We'll go through each tab in detail in the later lessons. But for now, the Solution tab is where you build the solution. We'll be working on this section the most in this lesson. The Servers tab is where you see the list of servers that's been configured. The Timer tab shows the list of timers that's been configured. Now, Tables are where you store the data in memory. Files tab is where you upload the file to use in the solution. For example, when using authentication such as TLS, the private key file will be uploaded here. Schemas are a model definition that is used in the solution. Now, schemas become very important when building complex solutions that branch out based on the incoming data. Flows are where you create reusable flows. You could have a solution that makes a call to, let's say, AWS numerous times. Instead of creating the flow multiple times in the solution, you'd create it once here and call this flow from the solution. You can think of it as similar to functions in a programming world. Lastly, there's the administration section. Now let's look at this a little bit more in detail. First, you have the product name and version. Next, you have a system setting. Here you can change the Autoflow name. When you're using multiple Autoflows in your deployment, it is helpful to identify them with the individual names. You can also change the port for the API Autoflow UI. You'll need to reboot the Autoflow for this change to take effect. Feedback info is a log about how the Autoflow is being used. This is for product feedback only, and most users wouldn't use this. Configuration management is what you use to download, upload, and clear configuration. This feature is very commonly used since Autoflow configuration are shared among community and internally in the company. And as we went through earlier, the license button is where you apply the license to unlock the features for commercial use. Now let's go back to the Solution tab and start making a solution together. The center pane is where you create the flow. Let's create a solution together to understand all the components that come together. The solution we are going to create is an API service that simply prints out a message, "Hello World." Let's start by creating a new HTTP API server by pressing the button at the top. Let's give it a name. Let's assign a port number 1234 to the HTTP server. Next, we need to create an endpoint or URI to direct the call. Let's give this a name as well. Lastly, we need to create some action when the data gets requested. To do that, we use what's called actions. For the Hello World solution, the action will be simply to set data in the response body so that it can be displayed on the browser. So I find the data set action from the data category and drag it to the flow. Now, if you're not familiar with the HTTP request and response, you can read more about it by searching the HTTP request response in the search engine. Or, as you can see on the data navigator on the right panel, HTTP request consists of body, header, path, method, and so on. And the response normally consists of body, header, and status code. Now, what's really powerful about Autoflow is that you can apply data directly to the HTTP data structure. For our solution, we'll apply Hello World to the response body, since, again, the response body is what gets displayed on the browser. To apply this action, we'll simply drag and drop the response body from the right panel to actions output to indicate where I want my actions to apply the data. Note, when you select one of the boxes in the flow, the settings for that box appears. That's where you make all the changes for that action, endpoint, or server. Also, we'll go through the data navigator in detail in the later lessons. But just to share at a high level, it is the progression of data from one action to another through the flow. So if you see that when we first got the request, there's no information in response body. But after we apply the string Hello World using dataset action, the actions have the information in the response body. Okay, let's open the tab and test the solution. Great, the Hello World solution we created works. Now there are a few hundred actions available, so you won't be short of features in creating your solution. And if you don't see what you need, post a feature request. More likely than not, the feature you requested will be included in one of the future releases. And since there are a lot of actions and it's continuously growing, they are grouped into categories for easier navigation. You can go in and out of the categories by using the breadcrumb. And one last thing that I want to touch upon in this lesson is the data simulator, which is located next to setting. We won't go too much into detail since we are going to cover it in later lessons. But at a high level, it is used to mock HTTP request data to help in creating and testing the solution. This data only exists within API Autoflow, so you can't view this data outside Autoflow, such as web browser. Now, for example, let's simulate data that sends Hello World in the request body of the mock data. In the data navigator, you'll notice that the data Hello World is being passed through the flow in HTTP request body. You can use this data in the solution by dragging it and dropping it in the actions. Here at the bottom, the simulations indicate that you'll expect a response body of Hello World when you send hello world in the request body. Now, for anyone who's developed solutions before, you'll appreciate how simple this makes creating a solution. Otherwise, you'll be constantly sending data from tools to test the solution. To sum up the lesson, 4 things to remember when creating a solution. Create a HTTP API server, create an endpoint URI, drag and drop the action, and configure the action.